I'm Jay Moran.
I'm Bridget Jaipal Valenza.
I'm Thomas O'Neill White.
This is What's Next, a dedicated hour to have important conversations about the issues facing the marginalized and underrepresented communities of Western New York and Southern Ontario.
If we're going to have some real healing, we've got to have space to tell some uncomfortable truth.
What's Next continues our mission to discuss race,
Equity,
and the common concerns of Buffalo's East Side and beyond.
The suburban area, everywhere. We must work and teach our children.
Welcome to What's Next. Today, we get a chance to talk with Chandra Redern. She's the Chief Executive Officer of the Buffalo Federation of Neighborhood Centers. Chandra, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's great to have you. And we had a chance to meet about 2 months ago when you opened up your Main Street location at the former Demerly Hall there on Main Street, former part of Canisius campus. So how about an update on that? How are things going at that facility?
So things are going well at the facility. I think we're getting into the swing of having our services there. I always say it's like buying a house. You kind of figure things out as you go day by day. And, as you continue to unpack, you realize how much you've accumulated over the years. And it's figuring out where everything goes and what makes sense, right? And so, it's been great. We've been able to have some programming there. We have some community events that occur weekly, and we have community partners that have come to see the space and really like it, and so we're excited about what's going to happen in the space.
What about the space and the location of it right there on Main Street? Strategic?
Yes, it was. Historically, we have been on inside streets. Mm-hmm. So, and that's fine because we started off as two settlement houses in neighborhoods, right? So it makes sense. But, I think that service needs have changed. When we start looking at people aren't always very neighborhood specific. They have to get to locations. So we start talking about transportation and access. So being on Main Street just makes sense, right? It's accessible from the bus route. There's subway stations on either end. And for many, it's even walkable and it's easy to find, right? So our prior office that we moved here, it was kind of around the way and you kind of had to explain to people how to get there. And you don't have to explain to people how to get to Main Street, right?
No.
So it actually works out very well.
And you mentioned it, and I'm not going to necessarily ask for a full historical exploration, but the settlement house concept, that's the origin of the Buffalo Federation of Neighborhood Centers.
It is. So in the late 1800s, the two settlement houses that we own were formed. So that would be Westminster Community House and the Neighborhood House Association. And we know them to be two of the oldest in the United States. And they were created to help European settlers to acclimate to America and, the things that were going on and how do you learn to live in community. And so the settlement houses were created in community to provide services to those in the community. And settlement house is really the birth of social work as we know it today, right? So you have the movement from the settlement house to kind of the neighborhood house when the people that were actually providing the services, they weren't living in the settlement house. So that was the key about settlement houses. People actually that work there live there, right? And they were in community. The neighborhood house tradition is more like people come in, they work in the neighborhood house, but it's still in the neighborhood. So we've evolved from that. In the late 1970s, our founder, Jan Peters, went to work for the Neighborhood House Association. And so she began her work there. And then they acquired Westminster Community House. And so in 1981, the two settlement houses were merged and became the Buffalo Federation of Neighborhood Centers. And so we still very much hold true to the settlement house tradition of meeting people where they are. So a lot of our services are provided in community. It's not necessarily people coming to us, but us making sure we can get to where people are to assist them. However, times have changed. We went through the pandemic. There's a lot going on. And so we do find more and more that individuals are coming to the office for appointments or for different services. And some of the services that we provide, we have to provide it in a larger space or a different type of space than someone's home. So it works both ways. So we try to have a hybrid and do both.
So just back to the being in the community where people are, so to speak. Have the locations in the neighborhoods, have they been there to the point where people know this is a place where I can go and get assistance?
Yes, up until very recently, because life has changed. We were not an organization that had locked doors and you didn't have to be buzzed in.
Right.
We really were in the community. So people will walk in. Can I make a phone call? Maybe they didn't have a phone, or, this is what's going on. Do you know someone that can help us? Like, we really were that organization. Interestingly, someone asked the other day, like, well, how do we get our referrals? Most of our referrals come word of mouth. People that have been part of BFNC, people whose family members have been serviced by BFNC. We do get referrals from traditional entities like Erie County and other resources, but a lot of it are people that just know BFNC from being in the community. I met someone and they're like, oh, my child went to daycare there. And that was so many years ago.
Right.
We haven't had daycare in forever. But they're like, my child went to daycare and, I was able to work because BFNC had a daycare in the neighborhood that my child could go to. So it's things like that. And we've always had that tradition. So, we've had to make some modifications because the world is different now. But we're still in community. People still know they can come ring the buzzer. Someone's going to help them or try to figure out how to help them.
And just to explore that a little bit more, though, like you said, sometimes it is word of mouth. And that's despite all the network of services, whether on the county level, state level, or even on the nonprofit level, there's still that need to. There are going to be people. I'll use the cliche, slip through the cracks. But this is why that word of mouth, making sure those people people are looking out for each other, it's got to be a very important part of what you guys do.
So that's a great point, right? Largely how BFNC was built was that we service people who unfortunately had fallen through the cracks. We service people that were marginalized, disenfranchised, people that may have been categorized as difficult to serve or hard to engage. That was our niche. That is our niche. And it's really about figuring out what people want and what's important to them and trying to help them meet that need. And so we take the outlook of, we're not the experts on your life. You're the expert on your life. And we're just here to help you. Our mission is to help you navigate a path from where you are to where you want to be. That looks different for everyone. So that's how our business was built, and that's what makes us unique.
What about, let's explore then the idea of needs and what people want. Because, when we had our conversation a couple of months ago, it wasn't as extensive as this one, I thought you made some really interesting points about how things have changed a little bit. So what about that? What are maybe you seeing now that maybe you didn't see 10 years ago?
Well, at the top of it all, people want to be treated with respect and dignity, right? I think sometimes when we're dealing with individuals that have needs or, for whatever reason, whether it's their actions got them to that point or something else happened, they want to be treated with respect and dignity. They want to feel like they're part of. They don't want to be told, like, this is what's good for you. This is what you should do. And it's not a one size fits all. And I think I've seen a real shift throughout my career in that. I think, we all go to school and we learn a lot of great things. And a lot of it is really applicable. But there's a difference in what you learn and then the actual practice of it. And it doesn't always work out that way, right? And so I may feel that someone really needs something, but maybe they're just not ready for that. And so people, I find, are really good at advocating for, I'm not interested in doing that.
Okay.
I'm interested in this. And are you going to help me or not? That's what it is. People are looking at, where am I going to be helped? They don't want to go through a lot of red tape. I get it. We have to be accountable for the dollars that funders give us. And people want to know that an impact is being made. So we as an organization have to do what we do. But, I think one of the things that I've seen over the years is sometimes there's a lot of red tape. Sometimes there's a lot of questions that are asked of people. And when you're dealing with someone in crises or someone that's kind of just down and out, it's not the time to ask them 100 questionnaire in order to get a bag of food or, right. Something like that. And those are some things that I have seen change that, it used to be people, you line up, you get whatever you get and that's it. And people are like, no, I'm an individual, and they're looking for community providers, service providers that recognize that and acknowledge that, there's a story behind every single person.
As you mentioned about the idea that trying to help change maybe the narrative for when somebody shows and is a need. But you mentioned about your food pantry. It's kind of changed. You've also changed the dynamic there as well of how people go about getting service and goods there.
Yeah. So probably it's about 14 years ago. Things happen based off needs. Someone comes and they're like, I don't have any food. And we're like, oh, we don't have any food. How do we get food for this person?
Right.
And there are lots of shelters. There are lots of organizations doing good work. Sometimes, you have to live in a certain zip code, or you can only go once a month, or, so many days, or you got to have 3 forms of ID or whatever it is. And I mean, food is a basic need, right? So I don't know that it makes a lot of sense to put people through hoops for food, right? Because at the end of the day, I just feel like if you're not doing what you should be doing with that food, that's something you have to deal with. But our job is to make sure that there's access, right? And that people can gain it. So one of the things, we had a lot of really great donors, a lot of stores and things like that. So they would bring food to what became known as our food share. And we call it that because it's not a pantry where you come in and we give you a bag of food and you may like half the stuff, or the other half maybe you can't eat because you have some other conditions like diabetes or high blood pressure. People come in and we give them a bag and they shop for what it is that they need and what their family consumes, right? And we also have a lot of new type of foods, and the person who coordinates our pantry is really great in kind of suggesting, well, you could use tofu to do this. And, I mean, because honestly, a lot of the people that we service, they would never purchase tofu.
Right.
They would never purchase, a
meat just like my wife. Yeah, exactly.
Right? And, or certain vegetables people haven't been exposed to. And so we try to educate people as well, but we allow them to select the food. And I think that's the unique thing about our food share, because it's the mindset of we're sharing food with you. And so please come. The other thing is that we have community gardens and we cultivate a lot of fresh produce in the summer. And so we give that out at our pantry because that's, really important that people are able to get produce. And, produce can be very costly.
Sure.
So, when you're talking about someone and they got to make the choice of, they have a family of 5 to feed and I'm going to, spend $4 on a bag of lettuce, probably not so much because I could get more for $4. Right. And so we try to provide those things to them because we know it's important. In that, we had a great collaboration with the Office of Mental Health previously and with Feed More's Mobile Farmers Market, where we were able to have sessions and teach individuals about how to select and prepare fresh vegetables, right? So they learned to saute and roast and all of these things. And it was really amazing. Just people saying, wow, I never knew I could cook broccoli in the oven, right? And it tastes pretty good. And so, we've done things like that with community members because it's about educating people so that they have the knowledge themselves so that they can use it moving forward, right? Not us always giving people something.
What's as best you can offer, what's been the response to that? What are you seeing? I guess now that you're the CEO, I'm sure you've got a lot of things that you have to do, including monitoring, impact and monitoring how people are taking to things. So what has been the response to that approach? Overall,
it's been good. I don't have the liberty to be in direct service anymore. So
I know, right.
I get the reports from people. Right. But, what I've been told is that, for example, the people that participated in the classes, they were eating better. A few even lost some pounds, because that was a goal they had, because they were able to integrate something new into their meal plan. Actually, yesterday, there was someone I spoke to from our food share, and she said, I just want to thank BFNC for listening to us in the community and knowing that, we had a need and you guys tried to fill it. And we're really appreciative that you've really tried to continue to keep the pantry going, because we all know that pantries across the area are struggling, right? And we were not, up until this year, supported by any major source. We were just people donating. So, we would feel it a lot then. People didn't have a lot of extras to donate, but we still tried to keep going and do what we could do because there was a need. And so the fact that there was a community member that had also used the pantry to say, like, what, we appreciate it. And it really, and she wanted to let me know it really makes a difference in the community, and people in the community talk about, the fact that you guys really try to help us out.
Stay with us. There's more to come. This is What's Next on WBFO.
Did you know that WNED PBS is always working on great new local shows for you to watch? Documentaries like Kleinhand's Gift to Buffalo, which tells the story of Buffalo's music hall.
The hall is very intimate, and that intimacy makes everyone who comes in here feel a part of our family.
Fun and educational series like Compact Science.
Believe it or not, peppers are technically fruits.
And Shakespeare's greatest hits, featuring some of his best-known soliloquies and monologues.
We are such stuff as dreams are made of.
You can watch them all on our website at wned.org/local shows. While you're there, check out the show pages and mini websites for additional content such as bonus features, photo galleries, and lesson plans. Find it all at wned.org/local shows.
Hi, I'm Christina. I love exploring the world around me, and I have behind-the-scenes VIP tickets to some of the most exciting places and people in Western New York. And you can come along with me from wherever you are. Let's go! A new series you can watch on WNED PBS, the Buffalo Toronto Public Media YouTube channel, and on PBS Learning Media nationwide.
So let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go!
You're listening to What's Next, our place to discuss the important issues of our communities of Western New York and Southern Ontario. We want to hear from you. Click on the Talk to Us option in the WBFO app, and we will work to get your questions or comments on the air. Do you have a story or concern that we should be addressing? Email us using whatsnext@wbfo.org. Together we'll have the conversations that are needed. This is WBFO, your NPR station.
Chandra Redern is our guest this morning on What's Next. Chandra is the CEO of the Buffalo Federation of Neighborhood Centers, and their services are far-reaching for sure. Another thing that we'd get a chance to talk about it a little bit before we went on the air, the Mommie Matters program. Let's get into that a little bit. What's the goal here?
So the goal is to give mothers just a little reprieve and to give them some tools and skills to help them have better mental health, mental wellness. Because what the studies do show that is if mothers are mentally well, right, they engage better with their children. And that's what we want, right? Because we want to have healthy children. And so, a lot of times, I'm a mom. So a lot of times you're doing multiple things and you're just going, you are going. You might be on like E, but you keep going because you have responsibilities. And what I found is that I would talk to so many mothers and they just never took time for themselves, never just, it's something simple. I always laugh because I was telling my family, I said, sometimes I just go and get an ice cream cone and sit in the car and eat it because it's just a good thing to do. But it's amazing that there are people that just never have the opportunity to do that. And so we wanted to create a space so that they could create also their own support network. Because here's the thing, we're a community service and we're here to provide services, but we have certain hours, right? Like we're not typically after 5 so much, we're not on weekends so much, but people's lives go on. So they need to have some type of support network, someone that they can reach out to. And that was our goal. And so we were able to get some funding through a prior project that was extended. And one of the things we created was these weekly kind of wellness sessions, various topics that affect moms. And so they come, they have some refreshments, they kind of level set for the evening because life happens. So it's not like we're just going into an agenda, but something may be going on with one of them and they want to talk about it. And so they have that opportunity. And then we have guest presenters talk about various topics. So this past week, the topic was dealing with the loss of a child. And it's open. So, it's not like you got to come to every session. We would hope people would. And we have some people that do, but people come to what really resonates with them. I'm excited because we'll have 2 events. One event is in August and it's a mother-daughter fashion luncheon. And one of the things is, we know there's a lot going on with daughters and teenagers and girls and kids in general. So how do you, as a mother, talk to your daughter about things that are happening? Life is very different for our young people. And so what we want to do is provide some resources and tools for the mothers and the daughters. So they're getting the same thing at the same time, right? But then also to be able to foster better communication, right? Because That's just key. It really is key when you talk about what's going on with your child. And so someone did say, well, what about the sons? Well, this one is specifically geared towards mothers and daughters, but we will be doing something where all moms, no matter if you have a son or daughter, can be able to come as well. But, we're excited to be able to offer these opportunities in community because they're much needed.
Yeah, and if you don't, as much as you can share, I guess, because I think there's definitely a high level of confidentiality,
Yes.
and we're talking about some personal issues here, to say the least. But what are you hearing? Talking about resonating, the stories of people who come in, and the types of things that some of these moms are sharing.
Yeah, so it's interesting because there's mothers in all phases. So there's mothers with adult children.
Right.
So one of the things that is shared often is that you don't stop mothering. Even when you have adult children, it just changes. So one of the mothers shared that, her relationship is now more of a friendship. And so a lot of times her children will come to her and ask her for something, and she'll say, like, well, what do you think you should do, right? Because that's part of, rearing a healthy adult, is they have to be able to problem solve, and we all make bad choices, and you got to work through those things. So those things are shared. We've had a mother that participated, and I love how all the mothers kind of rally around each other. And one of the things she said was that, no one had ever told her she was beautiful. So sometimes it's something that small. You never know what's going on with a person. On the outside, they may be smiling and seem like everything is great, but on the inside, they may really be struggling. And so what we've seen is that this is a forum for people to come confidentially and really be able to say, yeah, this is what's going on with me right now. This is what I'm dealing with. We have mothers that have younger children, so like toddlers, 2-3-year-olds, and they're like, oh my God, how am I going to get through this? And I feel like I'm going to pull my hair out. And sometimes I think as a mother, you don't always feel comfortable saying that in front of people, right? Because you feel like you're supposed to have it all together, but the reality is they don't come with the owner's manual.
No, they don't.
And so it's just a place where they can say, like, my kid did this. They ate chalk today. I freaked out. I didn't know what to do. Those types of things. But then there's other real issues, right? We have mothers that are married, mothers that are also single parents, and they're saying, I'm getting a paycheck, but it's just not enough. And it's really stressing me out, and I don't want my kids to see it, but I don't know what I'm going to do. Those types of things. So there's a lot of different things that are going on in these groups.
So when you hear that, like you said, a mother understandably can't make the paycheck go all the way, is that an opportunity then for perhaps connecting somebody to other opportunities?
Absolutely. One of the things, we have a department called the Hope Center at BFNC, and that's like our financial coaching, economic empowerment arm, right? So we always, refer people to them because a couple things they do. One, they can look to see, are there any other entitlements or services that you're eligible for that could assist you, right? Even on the short term, what really are the issues? Because a person may not want to go into detail about what's going on. So maybe you're behind in rent. Like, is there a program? We are also a vendor for Erie County Department of Social Services for a program called the Rental Supplement Program. The referrals have to go through Department of Social Services, but then they come to us. And so, we may be able to say, try this program. Because what we're still finding, Jay, is that people are still trying to dig their way out from COVID.
Right.
They're like really behind. And, I know people are like, oh, people got stimulus money and whatever. But then we got inflation and things started to really go up. And so, it didn't quite level out for people who maybe were already, paycheck to paycheck or something like that. We find a lot of people are right at the edge where they make $1 or $5 over to be eligible for some assistance, right? And so then something that our Hope Center could do is like, okay, let's really look at what you're spending. Let's really look at expenses. What could we switch around? Do you need all the cable TV channels, right? Maybe we need to take a break for a while to kind of free up some money for something else. Could you shop a little differently? They've been talking about doing couponing classes, things like that. How do you help someone try to, make it day by day? And then there's the bigger question, like, what career goals might you have? Because maybe there's some additional training. Maybe we refer you to something like that, skill enhancement. So it kind of, it's like an onion, right? You start peeling it back and you try to figure out how can you help this person.
What about when it comes to opportunities for, like you said, maybe there's another avenue to explore somewhere, maybe where the compensation could be a little bit higher. Are you, I guess, I'm sure there's plenty of people who fall under that, but are you finding the ability that there are opportunities out there for people to find? I mean, we hear a lot about lots of jobs being available, not being filled, but when it comes down to being real and about what people need to make it for their families, are you finding that there are truly those opportunities available?
I think for some people, yes. I think what we've seen for other people is that there's some things, right? We all, in our careers, we have to invest in development because, times are changing in the workforce. There's a lot of technology. So you have to stay on top of that. A lot of times we find people struggle with that. So we've been able to refer them to classes where they can get certifications. Those things make them more marketable on their resumes, right? We may refer them to an entity to really help them in terms of coaching them for interviews and things like that. Because sometimes people don't interview well. They may be going on a bunch of interviews and we're like, okay, well, what's happening? Those types of things. And it's interesting because the Hope Center has kind of become this catch-all for a lot of things. And so they do find, they're talking to people about, presentation in an interview, or let's look at the job you're trying to apply for and what your skill set is, and does that make sense? But then there are things, Jay, like childcare. Those are some bigger issues, and I know that there's different organizations working on those, but it may be that a mom is limited in when she can work because of childcare issues, because childcare is so expensive that people have to make a choice, and you shouldn't have to make a choice if you're going to work or get decent care for your children. We post everything on our website, www.bfnc.org, and we post everything on our social media. So we are on Facebook, we are on LinkedIn, and we're on Instagram. And so you'll see constant flyers and little announcements. And you can also give us a call at 716-852-5065. And you can say, hey, I just want to know about this or that. And what they can do is they'll take down your information and they can send you email blasts. So we do have an email list, and we have a great office manager that's really good at sending those things out to people. So there's a variety of ways that you can learn about the different programs and resources. But the website is, I can say, the best resource because you can actually read about the various programs on there.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And back to just talking about costs. Rental costs are going up, right? We under the shortage of decent housing is becoming acute for sure. Yeah. Is that something where maybe, I don't want to say, that maybe have to encourage people to make sure that they're, hey, if you need help, we might be able to help you on this. It goes back to this whole idea of who's going to take that step toward finding what they need. What about just kind of how do you explore that particular issue?
So when it comes to housing, it's a need everywhere, right? I mean, and so we have housing programs. Some of them are very specific to certain populations of people. So a lot of the housing we provide is for adults that are 18 years of age and older that are living with mental health diagnoses. We also do have affordable housing for seniors. And seniors in our market is anyone 55 years of age and older. I'll say that. So I like to say older adults instead of seniors. But and people are eligible up to 60% of the area median income. And, those are some opportunities we have. We also have, like I said, the rental supplement program, which is through DSS. But then in some of our other programs, like our care management program, and we provide care management basically is advocacy and linkage. That's what it is, right? Because people are like, well, what do they do? So they meet and they talk to you and they figure out what's going on with you and where you'd like to be. What are your goals, right? And how do they help you by linking you to different resources, right? And then they'll meet with you and kind of say, like, where are you with this? That's what they do. So we provide care management services to individuals that have Medicaid, that are living with either a mental health diagnosis or have 2 chronic health conditions. So if you have high blood pressure and diabetes and you have Medicaid, you'd be eligible to get a care manager. And care managers will work with you to help you find housing. And they have a lot of resources in community that they can link into, but they're going to do that research, right? Because sometimes we find people are just overwhelmed with the number of resources. So I like to think of care managers as people that help you organize your life. That's what they do, right? And they're going to do the research and they're going to say, okay, here are the options. What do you think about those options? Do you think you might be interested? When we talk about housing, right? Okay, so let's look at what the price range is or what you may need. So maybe you need assistance with a security deposit. Maybe you need assistance with moving. They're going to try to figure it out and do some research and get a resource. And they're going to say, okay, well, where would you like to live? You know, do you need a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom, all those types of things. And then they're going to try to research out apartments. And they're going to work with you to go look at those apartments. And they're going to look at things in that apartment to say, well, I don't know, that's not looking up to par. And, I think we all at times need advocates in our life.
Absolutely.
Right? And that's what they are to people. So we have a lot of different resources. Sometimes people are dealing with landlord-tenant issues, right? You have landlords that aren't doing what they should be doing in apartments. Care managers can assist with that. We've done some of that work in the Hope Center as well. Let us apprise you of your rights as a tenant. But we also want you to know what you should be doing well as a tenant too, and not creating problems for the landlord. So, we do some of that work. But, the reality is there just isn't enough housing.
Right.
And I think when we start talking about housing, we have to look at all types of housing. I love apartment buildings. I think they serve a purpose, but not everybody wants to live in an apartment building. Not everybody should live in an apartment building. And I think when you look at building communities that are thriving and sustainable, there's a mixture, right? There's apartments, there's houses, there's homeowners, there's renters, there's all of this stuff going on. And there's amenities in those communities. And so when we talk about housing, I think we have to talk about the type of housing, but also talk about what else is going in, right? Because if you put up an apartment building and there's no grocery stores, it's not accessible on the bus line, or you got to take like 6 buses to get somewhere. There aren't good schools near there. There's not green space, because that's important. I don't know. It may work for some people, but it doesn't work for everyone. And, we've been looking at housing. We have definitely space on Main Street, and it makes sense because part of that space borders a residential neighborhood. And so it's really, we're trying to be very thoughtful about what perhaps would be the next phase for us, because we want to do things that enhance the community and not take away from the community.
I almost feel like you're on the tip of telling me something that a major announcement, but I think I'm going to hold off on that for now, right? That'll probably be the best way to serve it. But the reality is you understand that your organization understands the need for affordable housing, and it's something that you're exploring in many ways. Yeah. Yeah, and that is, it makes sense, of course, that a location in real estate. Yeah. But it goes the same for anybody who's looking for any type of decent housing. That that we're looking for places like that. That's most certainly encouraging news for sure. Thanks for joining us today. This is What's Next on WBFO. More to come right after this.
I'm Corey, and this is Compact Civics. You know when you're taking a test in class and your teacher starts walking around to make sure no one's cheating? That's essentially what a poll watcher does. What, you've never seen them? Or maybe you have and thought, can I have some privacy, please? They are actually there serving a purpose. New York state law allows poll watchers to observe voting at the polls to ensure fair and honest elections. They're designated by candidates, political parties, or independent organizations which have candidates on the ballot. They can only talk to you if they think you're pulling some funny business with your vote, but they can't try to make you vote in a specific way. That's totally illegal, and you should report any of those shenanigans right away. Just like teachers make sure that you're the one taking your test and not your friend who already took the test, poll watchers ensure that each person only votes one time and under their own name. So this year, when you go out to vote, see if you can spot a poll watcher. And remember, they are there to have your back.
Special thanks to our partners, the Buffalo Presidential Center, whose mission is to explore and share stories about Buffalo and Western New York's contributions to the U.S. presidency and national affairs.
Public media is more than Morning Edition and Wait, Don't Tell Me. Buffalo Toronto Public Media creates digital series to ignite curiosity in young learners, free lesson plans, videos, and training for teachers and parents, and events to empower the minds of our community's next generation. This is public media.
You're listening to What's Next, our place to discuss the important issues of our communities of Western New York and Southern Ontario. We want to hear from you. Click on the Talk to Us option in the WBFO app, and we will work to get your questions or comments on the air. Do you have a story or concern that we should be addressing? Email us using whatsnext@wbfo.org. Together we'll have the conversations that are needed. This is WBFO, your NPR station.
Chandra Redern is our guest this morning, the CEO of the Buffalo Federation of Neighborhood Centers. Summer camp. You have summer camp going on this year.
We have summer camp, yes.
How's that going?
I hear it's going well.
Yeah.
That's what I hear. Yeah,
You're not attending, huh?
I will. I have to get out and visit the kids, but they're so busy. You know, our summer camp is great. It's learning, education, it's fun stuff, it's field trips, it's all of those things. There's a heavy STEAM component in there. There's a lot of character education. One of the great things about our camp is that we have a summer employment component. So we have teens, that a lot of them, this is their first job, and they work as camp counselor assistants in the program. So they're learning and they're giving back, and some of them can provide mentorship to the younger kids. So it's going well, is what I hear. The kids are very lively. They always are. But one of the things our youth services shares is that, our kids are dealing with a lot. And one of the things that the team tries to do is to instill a sense of hope in the young people. The young people are our future, and they're struggling right now. And there's a lot that's happened over the past 5 years, and there's a lot going on right now in the world. And they're questioning, their thing is, this was supposed to be a better place for us to live. And what happened? Literally, that's what they say, what happened? And I don't know that we all have answers for them.
Right.
But what we try to do is to say, okay, there's still some good in the world. And how can you do some good to put a little extra good out there? And they're a great group of kids, honestly. When they kind of come through and you kind of see them and they're smiling and they're happy to be there. Right. So it's a good program. And the team works super hard. I know the days are really long, and there's different things that are going on. They have maybe an art class is going on, and then they're out in the garden and they're doing that type of work. And I think Fridays are field trip days, I think. So they're gearing up for their Friday field trip, and they try to do different things. One of the other things is this summer we'll be introducing a component to really promote physical education with kids, physical wellness, but to expose our kids to other types of wellness. And for us, we're going to focus on swimming.
Okay.
Because a lot of Black children do not know how to swim. And a lot of that's historical, and we're not going to get into that. But, they don't learn how to swim. They don't swim. And unfortunately, a lot of children drown. Ooh. Right? So being able to swim is a very important skill. And so that's one of the things that, we're looking to do, is to be able to take our kids for some swim lessons so that they can learn how to swim, but exposing them to different types of physical education, whether it's horseback riding or things that they might not normally be able to participate in. So we're excited about that as well.
And the summer camp takes place at a couple of locations?
So everything youth services is located at our neighborhood house, which is at 76 Orange. And so they go between 76 Orange and 292 High Street, which is our moot center.
Okay.
And again, if someone was interested in camp, they could go to our website at www.bfnc.org, or they could call 716-856-0363, which is youth services, and they can ask for the Erie County Youth Services Director, and her name is Tika Monet Walker.
When you talk about going swimming and horseback riding, I might be interested in going, but I guess maybe I don't qualify right now, right? We also talked before we went on the air about, although it's the Buffalo Federation of Neighborhood Centers, there's also locations in Niagara County as well.
Yes.
And you're sensing that there are different issues or differences, I guess, when it comes to what kids may be dealing with in Niagara County as compared to what they're dealing with in Erie County.
Yeah, I think there's some generalities, that kids deal with things, but it may be the severity to which kids are dealing with things in Niagara County. We noticed, during the pandemic, a lot of differences when we had to pivot to some remote type of virtual programming with kids. Our Erie County kids were very much engaged. They just kind of took it and ran with it. They created podcasts and all of these things they were doing. And it was a little bit different for our Niagara County kids. A lot of the kids we deal with in Niagara County are kids that are struggling maybe in school. There are a lot of truancy issues. Maybe they are linked with probation services. So I think sometimes there's a little bit more work that's required to deal with some of the behavioral issues. And a lot of times that work has to be done, I think, face to face. So I think that's what that issue was. But again, I think that it seems from our services that there's a lot of different family dynamics in Niagara County. And it may be because it's a smaller area and maybe not so resource rich. I mean, we struggle with resources here in Erie County, but we have a lot of resources. And I think when you start putting family dynamics into it, sometimes kids are, trying to figure out, like, do I stay home and kind of watch out for my younger siblings, or do I go to this program? We try to make it so, like, okay, we can, especially in the summer, because Niagara County has summer programming as well. Actually, the kids did a bucket garden, which I had never heard of until they sent me a picture, but it was really, really cute. But we try to do things where, okay, so if there's 4 kids in the family, let's see if all 4 kids could come. Because that might take a little bit of pressure off of that older sibling, because maybe mom or dad has to work, right? It's not, necessarily like they're abandoned, but life happens. So someone has to watch the younger kids. I mean, I know my mom was a single mom for a while. I had to watch my younger brother. So I get it, So when we had to look at doing things a little differently in Niagara County to try to engage them more, and to, I think, looking at what their interests are. Because kids, I mean, even if in Erie County, different groups of kids are just interested in different things,
sure.
And so those are just some of the things. But we've noticed that there's stark differences, although Erie County minor transportation, most of our kids in our programs, their parents drop them off and pick them up. In Niagara County, we have to pick up our kids and transport them. It's a little bit, it's very different, and that presents different set of challenges for the programs, those types of things. So, our team, they're very good at trying to work through them, and they try to problem solve as much as they can. I mean, again, when you're running a program, you can't always tailor it to one or two, but you try to take into account differences.
You mentioned, of course, how your mom was a single mom. I think she was pretty young when you were born, if I'm not mistaken. Do you see, when you're seeing some of these kids at some of these programs, I know you're in the office and running a big operation, but do you see things inside the kids that you experienced as well?
Yeah, I do. I think I see kids that need someone to reach out and say, hey, let me share something with you. My mom was really young, but she got married really young, and then my parents divorced, and then she became a single mother. But I think if it were not for specific people in my life that kind of reached out and was like, hey, did you know about this? Or I think you should do this, I may have went a completely different, way. Perhaps, I don't know.
Right.
My mom was really amazing, and she tried to really instill a lot of values in me. And, she was great about that and what's right and what's not right. And then I had a grandmother that was really instrumental in my life. So I had those supports, but then there was that village of people. Right. And it came from teachers, or I remember going to the Boys and Girls Club and, I was a Girl Scout, and I played, sports and all those different things. Right. Those ad hoc things that make the world of difference to a kid's life. And so when I look at the young people that we serve, I just see so much in them. And I try to say, and I always, in our youth services worker, she always, director, she laughs at me because I'm like, well, why can't we give them this? Why can't we do this? We have to figure out how to do it. Because for some of them, I know if we can't try to give it to them, they may never get it, and it may be too late, right? Someone else is going to engage them that maybe doesn't really have their best interest at heart. So I always see that, or when a kid's like, we used to have the summer youth workers in our office, and so I'd get to see them, and they'd be like, well, what do you do? Because people always think you don't do anything. You're just in the office. And so I get the opportunity to say, this is what I do. And then they're like, oh, wow. And I remember having a kid and she's like, I want to do what you want to do. And I'm like, well, just keep on living. You might change your mind. But it was really great. And that once you get to talk to them and I'm like, well, if that's the case, let me tell you how I did what I did. And I think that's important, right? I think it's important to see that. And I think if you've been there, you know, when you see it, you know, you just see it in a kid and you just want to help them like do better. So, you know, sometimes we have kids and, you know, they got a chance to go to college, but like they need a laptop.
Right.
So if I can buy a $300 laptop, you know, some way, like, why wouldn't we? You know, because I know what it's like to go to college and have to figure out, well, when I went to college, you had to buy all your books. Now, some places books are included, but how are you going to pay for those books? You know, those types of things. And I think just having someone that is watching, even from the sidelines.
Is there a worthwhile message here to maybe explore a little bit or to provide? You know, there are many, many people who want to help and people who are helping and they're finding ways to help. But yet I think we're also, and you kind of alluded to this earlier, there's also that cynicism, I suppose, is better, for lack of a better term. And I guess what I'm wondering is it worth just reminding everybody that they can make a difference by just in a small way sometimes?
You know, this is what I see. There's not enough kindness in the world. There's a lot of stuff going on. And a little bit of kindness can make the world a difference to someone. It really can. You never know what someone's going through. And you never know what, you know, you buying somebody a cup of coffee is going to do for their day, right? It's $3 out of your pocket. But maybe this person has just been overlooked and they're really dealing with some serious issues. So, you know, I always say when you can, err on the side of being kind. Don't worry about what somebody's going to do with the $5 you give them, right? I mean, most of us, we were going to go blow the $5 anyway on something we didn't need. So don't worry about that because people get into this debate, so they're going to do this, they're going to do that. No, your job is to give someone a helping hand, maybe provide them with a piece of knowledge or just say a kind word to them, right? Like you just don't know what people are going through. So I like to say, like, I want to be on the side of adding a little bit more kindness into the world and not taking away from the world.
You know, I think I'm going to make a sign and put it on my desk, err on the side of kindness.
Yes.
That is outstanding.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. It's a unique thing of BFNC that makes us different. We have a very different type of culture. And some, you know, it's not for everybody. Every place isn't for everybody because, you know, our founder was a woman of color. And so she always would present herself as, I'm a professional of color. And for professionals of color, we know that that's just loaded. And there's a whole lot that goes with that.
You've given us 2 topics for future shows.
But, you know, she was intentional about people serving people that looked like them, that understood to some degree what life was like. And so a lot of the people that we hire are people from the community, people that may have gone through our services at some point in time. And then we have a lot of professionals, people that come out of college and things like that. But it's so varied and we have a very diverse staff. And that's very important, especially when you talk about an organization that serves the east side of Buffalo. We look like who we serve. And, you know, sometimes people that we serve, we know, you know, and, you know, we work through those issues, but I think it also helps us to know that the human side of the work that we do, like it's not just a line of people that are looking to get some food or someone that's dealing with an addiction. I always say time and chance happens to us all, you know, and I always try to think about, you know, how would I want my child to be treated in a summer program? How would I want my family member to be engaged in a service? And the staff that work for us, they think the same way. And so I have people that go above and beyond because they know what it's like, whether they've been there or they've seen someone in their family. And so that's a very unique thing about our organization.
couple other unique things about your organization, or things that are coming down at the end of the year. But I know it's worth mentioning a couple of the events that you guys commit to toward the holidays.
Yes. Well, there's actually one in the fall. So there's Fall Fest.
Oh, Fall Fest.
And that will be October 4th from 4:30 to 8 p.m. And that's at 76 Orange Street. And that's a great thing. We've been doing it for 3 years. And it's our health wellness fair for the community. So we bring out a petting zoo, there's games, there's tons of information. We invite all types of community vendors, there's food trucks, there's so much that goes on at that event. But it's really great. And the community has responded very well to that. And then in November, which is typically the Thursday before Thanksgiving, we have our Thanksgiving luncheon for seniors. So it's a really special time, and we do it all up for them. And they have a traditional Thanksgiving meal, and there's music, and they just love it. And, you know, it's nice because a lot of times, a lot of our seniors, you know, they live alone. And then the older you live, you know, a lot of them say, like, oh, my friends have passed away. And so they still like that socialization. And especially during the holidays, it's hard. It's really, our business is really hard during the holidays. Sure. And then the final thing that we do to round out our year is brunch with Santa for single parents. So it is our gift to single parents and their children. And they come and they enjoy a great brunch, and there's activities, and there's a visit from Santa, or last year was a visit from Kente Claus, and they enjoyed that, and there was storytelling and gifts. And so those are some of the things that, you know, we like to do to give back to the community during the holiday time.
You know, I've having a chance to talk to a lot of folks over the last couple of years doing this. I'm always interested in getting their view of the East Side. You know, it can be sometimes there's like predisposed definitions or characterizations. When you think about the East Side, knowing what you know and the people that you not only have working for you, but people that you have worked with, just tell me what you think.
I think there's a lot of opportunity and potential. I'd like to err on the side of positivity.
And kindness, too. Positive and kind.
There are a lot of challenges and problems.
Of course.
I mean, you know, let's be real. And I'm sure you had guests and everybody talks about it. And I think it's an area that has, you know, been neglected for various reasons, you know. But when you're there, there's so much richness in the community. I mean, I like it because there's certain places I go, like I go to, you know, Golden Cup to get my greens and beans soup. And
try the sweet potato pound cake, too.
I try to stay away from those things, Jay. I do, but every time I stop by, I'm like, what dessert do you have? But, you know, there's so many things, right? There's that I think are hidden gems. There's so much history I think that people don't know about. I'm a history buff. So, you know, earlier on, we did a series called Neighborhood Fruits in the Fruit Belt. And we just, our PR team went out and we interviewed different people in the community. And we learned about the history of the community, like people that have lived in these communities forever. And they share the stories. And I think those are the things that have to be highlighted. And then you put the resources back and you are intentional about developing the East Side, right? And what that looks like for the people that live there. And like I said earlier, building a healthy community. It's a mixture of housing, mixture of business opportunities, right? I think, you know, I'm not from Buffalo, but what I learned is, you know, Jefferson Avenue, Bailey Avenue, all those avenues were like thriving, booming, Genesee Street. Really looking at those opportunities and how do we engage businesses and how do we engage businesses that are actually on the East Side and help them flourish, because there's a lot. I mean, you have the Challenger has been there forever, right? And I mean, there's just so much greatness on the East Side. And I know there's been so much tragedy and despair, and I know that people struggle, and I know that people are angry. But I just feel like if we can really come together and and really there's some true investment, and not just from, government, but investment from our foundations and all these other entities, right, that make things flow, I think there's a lot of potential.
And then just a final question, because we're down to about 60 seconds, and this is, again, one of those questions that probably needs more than 60, but are you seeing... I know you. I don't have to ask you if you have hope, because I know you have hope. Mm-hmm. There is no doubt, if anybody's been listening to us for the last 55 minutes, they know you have hope. But are you seeing a sign that like you just laid out, what's needed? Are you seeing signs that maybe that is coming? Or do you want to withhold on that comment?
I'm going to withhold on that comment. What I can say is that I hear about a lot of great things, and I'm waiting to see them come to fruition.
All right. Well, let's get together when they happen. All right.
Absolutely.
And if they don't, let's get together and let's talk about that too. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Chandra Redern is the CEO of the Buffalo Federation of Neighborhood Centers. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you, Jay.
Thanks for joining us. You've been listening to What's Next on WBFO and WBFO HD1 Buffalo, WOLN Olean, and WUBJ Jamestown, your NPR station.